Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. We're going to talk about comic books. I think I'm going to roll a bunch of comic book news into one video, and I'm going to tell you why I'm going to do that. I don't do blow-by-blow news videos anymore for the Western comic book industry because nobody cares. I'm going to be very, very blunt. For the most part, in the last couple of years, we have seen a steep decline in interest in all the drama around the Western comic book industry. It's almost as if the general public stopped giving a shit. And I seem to think that is the case. I've actually talked to friends. They said that they've seen declines in comic book videos. I think it's true. I think that, pop culture has moved on. I think that people that would have been, for lack of a better term, comic book nerds have moved on to other media, whether it's manga or video games or anime. There's just not a lot of interest in the Western comic book industry anymore. So I think what I'm going to do is just talk about some of the stories that have come up in the last couple days and kind of give opinions on it. The first one being that IDW is losing G.I. Joe and Transformers. They don't have much going for them now. I guess they're still going to keep Dungeons & Dragons and My Little Pony from Hasbro, but G.I. Joe and Transformers were two of their flagship titles, and this comes right after they lost the Star Wars and Marvel licenses. I mean, IDW doesn't have much going for it anymore. I don't even know how they stay in business. I'm going to be completely honest. Now, apparently their numbers were better last quarter, I guess, than they have been in a while, but I don't know what the hell's going on over there. They stopped making board games. They actually were making money with board games, but they are losing licenses left and right, and they're supposedly going to be banking on creator-owned projects, which is so weird because and disclaimer, I did used to freelance for IDW back in the day on various stuff, mostly Disney stuff. It's been 6 or 7 years since I've done any work for them. But even back then, they were not interested in creator-owned projects. So to see them pivot like this is kind of weird, and it could be just kind of like desperation. Like they know the direct market's not working for them. They know they can't get these licenses. I don't know. We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to talk about this bombshell right here. That DC Comics activist editor-in-chief, VP general manager, I guess he's the general manager over there, their activist general manager, Daniel Cherry III, is jumping ship. And I'm gonna give you an opinion. I think he's jumping ship because of the upcoming merger between Warner and Discovery, and the fact that Warner and Discovery have made it clear they're going to focus on profit when they merge this summer. I guess they're going to finalize that this summer. And he probably knows there's no place for him. And he thinks he's leaving on a high, I guess, with the Superman sales supposedly being very good, but I'm hearing from other sources that the Superman sales have actually bottomed out. Superman is a bottom, I guess. But DC Comics not in a good place. Their stuff is getting mocked left and right. They're killing off the Justice League. We've got I Am Not Starfire being a laughing stock. And they're just struggling to keep up. Now, some of the bright spots really aren't it isn't material that DC Comics is creating themselves. They're doing webtoons. They're doing really well with the Bat Family webtoon. But the direct market's not doing good. A lot of their creators are leaving. Almost all their characters are going woke, and they're getting radical makeovers. And, it just all feels very fan fiction-y, doesn't it? It's all very much fan fiction. But the guy who I think, personally, was behind a lot of it is jumping ship to go work with Kanye West, which makes zero sense given this dude's political leanings, right? But that's supposedly what's going to happen. So before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Over 254,000 subs. Thank you so much for the support. Greatly appreciate. We do talk about the comic book industry. Having worked in and around the comic book industry for a number of years, I worked mostly on licensed Disney comics. We had our own comics. In fact, we did reprint our webcomic shadow binders under the Clownfish Comics imprint. You can buy that directly from shopclownfish.com, and there's a lot more comics content coming this year. We're just trying to get all of our ducks in a row, but we just publish what we like. We publish what we want to see stories we want to tell. And we don't expect to make a lot of money doing comic books, or at least Western comic books, because it seems like that ship has sailed. I mean, crowdfunders still do well, but as far as, comics doing gangbusters compared to manga, it's just not where it's at. I mean, we've had a couple of crowdfunding campaigns that were pretty big. Berserker did really well. Power Rangers did well, but we're talking Keanu Reeves and, Power Rangers, freaking Power Rangers. Anyway, IDW losing G.I. Joe and Transformers shouldn't surprise anyone. We talked about it before. I think the person who leaked it, I'll give credit where credit is due, was actually Rich Johnston. It was actually Rich Johnston that said that he thought that IDW was going to lose G.I. Joe and Transformers. And I guess Transformers have been with IDW for like 18 years. 18 years. Oh my God. 18 years. The publisher's still going to make comic books based on D&D and My Little Pony. This is coming from Gizmodo. IDW Publishing became the 5th most popular comic book publisher in America on the strength of adaptations of beloved franchises like Star Trek, Ghostbusters, Orphan Black, and CSI. Now 2 of its most popular series being taken away. The company is losing both Transformers and G.I. Joe at the end of the year. It had been a rumor they think Skybound's going to pick them up. The 2 franchises have been cornerstones of IDW's body of work for the bulk of the last 2 decades. The company acquired the Transformers license in 2005 and G.I. Joe in 2008, and since then have published over 75 separate series, miniseries, and one-shots. Transformers make up the vast majority of those books. Yeah, because they kind of burned down G.I. Joe. IDW got woke with G.I. Joe. It didn't go very well. It was a huge debacle, and some of the G.I. Joe books were only selling a couple thousand copies. Not good. It's a major blow for IDW, which already lost the rights to make all-ages Star Wars and Marvel series last year. Again, the inside scoop on that, as I understand it at the time, was that Disney was testing IDW to see if it was viable to send more Marvel stuff their way. Basically outsource all the Marvel superheroes, and they dropped the ball. They've had nothing but financial problems. There's been a lot of drama. I have to wonder, speaking of G.I. Joe, if all of that drama around G.I. Joe and the Aubrey Sitterson situation, if that actually had some impact on Disney's decision, I don't know. I have no idea. I really don't. And to be fair, Sitterson, since the G.I. Joe debacle, has actually walked back, some of what he said. And he said, hey, sometimes you got to keep politics out of things and just, whatever. Which I give him props for that, absolutely. But it was a disaster at the time. I think, as I understand it, they almost lost the Hasbro license back then. And that was like 4 or 5 years ago, and now it's definitely over. It's not all bad news. IDW still has a year's worth of Joe and Transformers content to put out, including G.I. Joe: A Real American Hero 300, which is written by Larry Hama. The Hollywood Reporter reports in Hollywood that IDW will be keeping other Hasbro-owned IPs, including D&D and My Little Pony. For now, you might think that the 2 comics would head to Marvel, given that Hasbro already has an incredibly close relationship with the company since it makes merchandise based on the publisher's superhero comics. But yeah, they're not. They're supposed to be talking to Robert Kirkman, Skybound. Yeah, and I don't know, because actually Disney, I think, is going to start viewing Hasbro and Paramount as a competitor, especially with Paramount Plus going up against Disney Plus and Plus and Plus Ultra, Netflix Plus Ultra. So Twitter already lamenting it. It's a sad day. Personally, I checked out of IDW Transformers. I never really read a lot of G.I. Joe at IDW. It didn't interest me. I read some of the Devil's Due G.I. Joe. But as far as Transformers go, it started to get pretty freaking weird. I'm going to be honest. It started to get pretty freaking weird. But I checked out of IDW's books, and I read Transformers pretty regularly with IDW. In fact, I did some work on some of those books back in the day. But I stopped reading probably about 8 years ago, I think. I just wasn't interested. And then I saw they rebooted everything anyway. I was pissed off about Hunter Onion too. So that kind of pissed me off how they handled that. But anyway, that's a whole nother issue. People were like, yeah, there's still IDW. They're gone, guys. IDW's fucked. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. They're just fucked. They are. And speaking of fucked, I'm starting to wonder about DC Comics. Daniel Cherry is jumping ship, right? And this is another one actually coming from Bleeding Cool. They had, look, I mean, you can think what you want about Rich Johnston. I think he's opportunistic and, a little bit of a Rita Skeeter, right? But he does his rumors. He does get it right a lot of times. He does, and I'll give him props. He got this right. Daniel Cherry leaving. I missed it. I'll be honest. I mean, that's how little I've been paying attention to the mainstream comic book industry over the last couple months. It's just bound and determined to blow itself up. There's nothing you can do. You just kind of let it do its thing. It's kind of like dealing with an alcoholic or a drug addict. At some point, you get tired of, begging, pleading, trying to, look at the brights, like, oh, look, maybe they'll come out of it. Maybe if I just, have a little more faith, a little more hope, they'll stop drinking for me. They'll stop using it. No, it's the industry's toast, guys. The mainstream Western comic book industry, as we've known it. Now, I want to be clear. I'm not talking about graphic novels. I'm not talking about Webtoon. But the direct market, the floppies, the monthly thing, it's winding down. And Daniel Cherry is jumping ship, right? This guy's jumping ship. He already did the damage, and he's jumping ship. This is coming from the Hollywood Reporter. The exec was in the position for less than 2 years, having come aboard in September of 2020. Daniel Cherry III, Senior VP and General Manager of DC, has stepped down, multiple sources tell the Hollywood Reporter. Reasons for the abrupt exit, which was characterized as quitting, are unclear. Daniel Cherry was in the position for less than 2 years, having come aboard in September 2020. The role he inhabited was a newly created position at the time, crafted in response to the harsh executive layoffs that occurred in 2020 and followed the departure of Dan DiDio. DC had no comment. Cherry reported to Warner Brothers Global Brands and experienced President Pam Lifford and headed up business affairs, editorial, talent services, marketing, sales, brand, and direct-to-consumer for DC. He also oversaw business development for the company with executive Ann DePies. Cherry came in as DC was in rebuilding mode, and one of his goals was to future-proof the company, with one of his aims being to increase its global reach. Well, he didn't do a very good job, did he? They came in, they tokenized a bunch of legacy characters. They switched characters out for more diverse versions of themselves. Sales had an initial bump, but then they kind of flatlined. There's been a lot of backlash. Fans, for the most part, don't seem to care for what DC is doing. And now he's jumping ship. So he came in, he fucked it up, and he's jumping ship. It's unclear how successful his initiatives were, but sources say DC did have a banner 2021 thanks to editorial initiatives and interest in publishing lines thanks to Suicide Squad, Sweet Tooth, and Sandman. None of those being superhero, well, except for Suicide Squad, but no Batman, Superman, yada, yada. If things are so great, why are all their top writers and artists jumping ship? Why are they all going to Substack? Basically, they're taking any opportunity they can take to get the fuck out of DC Comics. Things are not good, guys. It's unclear where Cherry will land. The comics blogosphere is speculating he's working with Kanye West. The executive came in the comics realm from the video game business, where he acted as chief marketing officer for Activision Blizzard. Hey, wait a second. Was he there when they were into the Cosby Suite stuff? Do you need to subpoena Daniel Cherry? Do you need to ask him some questions? Hey, Mr. Cherry, what did you see when you were at Blizzard? What did you partake in? Prior to that, he was chief marketing and innovation officer for the Jersey Devils. So according to rumor monger Rich Johnston, he's been headhunted by Kanye West because him and Cherry worked together in the past. This is going to be really interesting because Kanye is pretty conservative, I think, now, isn't he? Seems like he is. I don't know. DC did not respond. Of course not. Looks like they might have given the tip-off to the Hollywood Reporter. Ran an incredibly soft soap of an interview last year with him. So I think what's going on is this guy's jumping ship before the Warner Discovery merger. I have to wonder, again, talking about that pendulum swing, if they're not telling DC Comics already, get your shit together. What you've been doing for the last year or two, it's not working. We want Batman, Superman. But then, look at the movies. They're like, oh yeah, we're supposedly going to replace Batman and Superman with Batgirl and Supergirl. So who the hell knows? I don't know. It's not his problem anymore, is it? He's out of here. And so are a lot of fans. So are a lot of readers. And again, this video, I do not expect to get very many views because nobody gives a shit about the Western comic book industry these days. So ditch yourselves, guys. I'm going to wrap it up. Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, and we will talk later.